the program. We now turn to South America for our next update, where Brazilian President Lula da Silva is pushing back hard against growing U.S. pressure on trade and judicial affairs, responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to impose a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports starting from August the 1st. Lula made it clear that Brazil will not back down. He stressed that Brazil, not the United States, runs a trade deficit in the bilateral relationship, and said that any attempt to unilaterally impose tariffs will be met with reciprocity. The Brazilian leader also rejected outside influence over his country's judicial system amid comments from Trump criticizing Brazil's ongoing legal actions against former President Jair Bolsonaro. Lula reaffirmed Brazil's sovereignty, calling his country's institutions strong and independent. Let's listen in to the Brazilian president.
Não tem comercial com o Brasil. É o Brasil que tem déficit comercial com os Estados Unidos. Vou tentar e brigar em todas as esferas para que não venha taxação. Vou brigar no OMC, vou conversar com meus companheiros dos BRICS. Agora, se não tiver jeito, no papo, no tete-a-tete, nós vamos estabelecer a reciprocidade. Taxou aqui, a gente taxa lá. Taxou aqui, a gente taxa lá. Taxou aqui.
We're now joined by Rabinder Sachdev, who is an international affairs expert. He joins us to discuss this ongoing situation in further detail. Rabinder, thank you very much for joining us, first of all. President of Brazil, Lula da Silva, says Brazil will not back down. What tools does he actually have to respond if these heavy tariffs are imposed?
Thank you very much. A pleasure and great questions. What tools does he have? He would have, as he said, he can go to the WTO. He could rally up the nations of the BRICS and the BRICS bloc. These are two. So broadly speaking, let's say he'll try and pursue legal methods and diplomatic methods, right? But both of these will not be enough to, reduce the damage or the hurt which these tariffs could impose on the Brazilian economy. At the same time, what this would do, however, is spread a sentiment across the world for more and more nations to group up amongst themselves and to move away from the United States, or to try insulate themselves from the United States by, let's say, strengthening their regional blocs and groupings, including the BRICS. So it would have an impact for both, actually. While, yes, it is true, what Trump is saying that America runs a deficit with Brazil, no, that is wrong, as Lula also pointed out. The US exports about $50 billion worth of goods, goods trade, right? And Brazil 43. So in fact, it's Brazil which has about $7 or $8 billion deficit running with the US. So that's the facts or the numbers on the ground. But now back to, President Lula and the situation. Trump, okay, why is Trump doing it? Couple of things broadly, I think. One, in a big picture, the United States looks at the southern hemisphere of the South Americas as its backyard, one. Secondly, in that backyard, it does not want now more and more any left-leaning or socialist-leaning governments, and also, yes, to, push back against China or China's growing influence. So the left and socialist governments in South America will face, pressures and challenges from the United States under a Trump administration, without doubt. They were facing pressures under the Biden administration also, but from a different perspective. Here, Trump has personalized matters also. So though he's talking about economic rationale for the tariffs, it's much more the optopolitics that he's wanting to project. And also, of course, in the same vein, Bolsonaro, who was known as, or is known as the Trump of the tropics, right? He is kind of a soulmate with Trump. So Trump would very much like to, bolster Bolsonaro. Plus, there's one more issue with Brazil. Brazil had, if you remember, censored or not censored, blocked Twitter in between for some time. So for Trump, okay, other than his falling out with Musk right now, maybe he's not very happy with Twitter now, but still, the charge is that Brazil is creating artificial barriers for the expansion of the U.S. technology companies in Brazil under Lula, right? So that's another beef that Trump has with Brazil.
Yes, Rupinder Sachdev, thank you very much for joining us.